Breaking news! Things are very heated behind the scenes at the Baltimore Ravens, including news involving coach John Harbaugh. We are waiting for confirmation of what will happen with Tucker and Mark Andrews. Their future is still uncertain. I will tell you all the details of what has been happening in the last few hours. But first, make sure you have already pressed the like button if you believe the Ravens have great potential to reach Super Bowl 60. Now, I want to ask you a question. On a scale of 0 to 10, what grade would you give John Harbaugh as coach of the Ravens? Comment below. Your opinion is very important. The Baltimore Ravens found themselves at the center of controversy after the latest NFLPA report revealed some surprising and worrying perceptions of the players. Ranked 28th out of 32 teams in the head coaching category, John Harbaugh has suddenly found himself under scrutiny from both inside and outside the organization. The survey, which provides anonymous feedback from players, paints a picture of a locker room that may not be as united behind its longtime leader as many previously thought. For years, John Harbaugh has been seen as a steady hand guiding the Ravens to consistent playoff appearances, but this latest report suggests that not all players are fully behind his leadership style. A B grade on the surface doesn't seem alarming, but when it translates to being ranked 28th among all NFL head coaches, it raises eyebrows. The survey indicates that only 75% of Ravens players believe Harbaugh is efficient with his time, ranking him 20th in that category. Even more concerning is that he ranks 25th in receptiveness to player feedback. Some fans may dismiss the rankings as just another offseason story, but the Ravens have a history of players quietly expressing concerns about Harbaugh's harsh coaching methods. This report only adds fuel to speculation that the locker room isn't as united as it once was. Some players may feel like their voices aren't being heard, and if you're an organization with Super Bowl aspirations, that's a problem. What makes this even more notable is the fact that ownership, led by Steve Bisciotti, received relatively strong reviews from players, ranking 9th in perceived willingness to invest in the team's facilities and 8th in commitment to building a competitive roster. If the players trust the front office but not the head coach at the same level, that's a dynamic worth watching as the 2025 season approaches. There's also the issue of player treatment beyond just the coaching staff. While the Ravens rank 13th overall out of 32 teams, a respectable standing, there are areas of concern. The team's training staff, locker room, and nutrition programs all received middle-of-the-pack grades, suggesting room for improvement. While nothing in these categories was catastrophic, Baltimore's reputation as a top-tier organization takes a slight hit when other teams are seemingly doing more to make players comfortable. But the real firestorm here isn't about the weight room or the quality of the cafeteria food. It's about whether John Harbaugh still has full control of this team. If players aren't responding to him the way they once did, that could spell trouble for a franchise that is looking to break through after another playoff disappointment. Harbaugh has been a staple in Baltimore since 2008, bringing a Super Bowl to the city in 2012, but at what point does the Ravens front office start considering a future beyond him? If the team struggles to get over the hump again this season, there will be difficult conversations about his long-term future. Adding to the uncertainty is the swirling speculation around key players like Brandon Stephens and Ronnie Stanley. The talk around the Ravens secondary has been heating up, with some whispers suggesting Stephens' market may be stronger than expected. Harbaugh himself left the door open for a potential return, but many believe the Ravens will let him test free agency. Stephens had a solid campaign 2 years ago but struggled significantly last season, leading many fans to question whether he's a reliable piece in the long-term defensive plan. The Ravens could find an upgrade either in free agency or the draft, and if another team is willing to overpay for Stephens, Baltimore might be content to let him walk. Meanwhile, Ronnie Stanley's return seems all but certain. Reports suggest that the team and Stanley's camp are deep in negotiations, with optimism that a deal will be reached before free agency officially opens. Stanley, when healthy, has been one of the league's better left tackles, and his presence on the offensive line will provide much-needed stability as the team continues to build around Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. After battling injuries for years, Stanley put together a fully healthy season in 2024, making it clear why the Ravens see him as a vital piece moving forward. Still, the team has some big decisions to make, including what to do with Mark Andrews. The star tight end has been a cornerstone of the offense, but his future in Baltimore is now in question. General Manager Eric DeCosta has been noncommittal about Andrews' status, and with Isaiah likely emerging as a legitimate TE1 caliber player, there's a possibility that Andrews could be a cap casualty. Trading or releasing Andrews would save the Ravens over $11 million in cap space, and with likely showing his potential down the stretch. Baltimore might decide that the financial flexibility is more valuable than keeping both tight ends on the roster. For now, the Ravens remain one of the AFC's top contenders, but the lingering concerns about Harbaugh's leadership, potential departures in the secondary, and the looming decision on Andrews all make this an offseason filled with intrigue. What do you think, Ravens fans? Is John Harbaugh still the right coach for this team? Should the Ravens bring back Brandon Stevens? And is it time to move on from Mark Andrews? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's talk about it. The uncertainty surrounding the Baltimore Ravens this offseason isn't just about individual players, it's about the bigger picture. This is a team that was one step away from the Super Bowl, yet questions about the locker room, coaching staff, and key contracts loom over what should be an exciting time for Ravens fans. The front office, led by Eric DeCosta, has already made some big moves, but the next few weeks could define not just the 2025 season, but the team's direction for years to come. Let's talk about John Harbaugh first. The report card isn't just about numbers, it's about perception. The fact that Harbaugh ranks in the bottom 5 among all NFL head coaches when it comes to player satisfaction is a massive red flag. It doesn't mean he's lost the locker room completely, but it does suggest that his leadership style is wearing on certain players. The biggest question is, how does this impact the future? This is the final year of Harbaugh's contract, and while he has a Super Bowl ring and multiple AFC championship appearances to his name, the Ravens haven't been able to break through in recent years. If Baltimore stumbles again in the playoffs, does the organization finally decide to move on? We've seen teams move off long-tenured coaches before. Look at what happened with Mike McCarthy in Green Bay or Sean Payton leaving New Orleans. At some point, even successful partnerships can run their course. Harbaugh has earned the right to lead this team in 2025, but if the players aren't fully buying in anymore, that could force a tough decision next offseason. And what about the players who may not be part of the team's future? The Brandon Stevens situation is a fascinating one. Despite his struggles in coverage, there seems to be a market for his services, with insiders suggesting that teams see value in his versatility. If the Ravens can't bring him back on a reasonable deal, they'll likely look to replace him in free agency or the draft. One name to watch? Iowa State's TJ Tampa, a prospect who has been linked to Baltimore as a possible Day 2 selection. On the offensive side of the ball, the focus remains on Ronnie Stanley's contract situation. All signs point to the Ravens keeping him, which is huge considering the alternatives. Moving Patrick McCrary into a full-time starting role at left tackle was never the ideal scenario, and while Andrew Voorhees showed flashes at guard, the team clearly values the stability Stanley provides. If they can lock him into a cap-friendly deal, it allows them to focus on upgrading other areas of the offensive line, particularly at left guard, where they need a true long-term answer. But let's be real, the biggest debate in Baltimore right now is about Mark Andrews. His legacy with the Ravens is already secured. He's been Lamar Jackson's favorite target for years, has multiple Pro Bowl appearances, and is one of the most respected players in the locker room. However, football is a business, and with Isaiah likely proving he can be a TE1 in this offense, keeping both long-term isn't realistic. So let's hear it. Ravens fans, where do you stand on these issues? Do you think John Harbaugh is still the right coach for this team? Should they bring back Brandon Stevens? Or is it time to move on? And what about Mark Andrews? Should Baltimore keep him? Or is it time to hand the reins over to Isaiah Likely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's talk about it.